Welcome to It Is Near, Episode 9. This is actually what was called Episode 8, the second half. So we're picking up where we left off at kind of an awkward moment, but we've been talking about things that aren't going to work out very well in terms of how American democracy goes. But we're now questioning, well, why would God do the things that the Bible claims he does? Why would God be the author of confusion and uncertainty and pain? Why would he allow this? Why would he see to it that the leaders that we have in the world are not up to the task? They're just not good leaders. It doesn't matter which side of the political spectrum we're on. Nobody's ever happy with the leaders that we have. Very few times. Yes, Abraham Lincoln was a great leader. He was unique. Clearly, if the Almighty is involved in human governments, there are inflection points where it's obvious that something much worse would have happened if an ordinary leader would have come in. But Abraham Lincoln changed the entire direction of American history. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt did the same. Those kinds of people come along once in a while. But it does seem like most of the time when we get somebody who's different, it's different in a bad way. And a lot of people are thinking that that's exactly what we're in for now with Trump 2.0, Trump 47. Time will tell. I hope that there's fewer people who suffer than I expect will suffer. But be that as it may, in the long run, which is now only 30 years, we really have a 30-year window here to turn the world around. And I think the Bible predicts, that in the next 30 years, you are going to see death come to an end and the world actually change directions completely away from the doomsday engine that is driving the human race towards self-destruction. That is going to come to an end. And this podcast is focusing on the things that have to happen in order for the invisible hand of heaven to step in and get involved in human affairs in a way that's constructive and redemptive at a level that no one hardly can imagine. So, ultimately it's good news, but in the short run, the next 4 years are going to be awful, and the next 14 years after that are going to be hellacious. So, the second half of Episode 8, which I now call Episode 9 of It Is Near. Thanks for listening. Why would God do this? Why is this something that, like in the book of Daniel says? Why does God claim to be in charge of human affairs? And if so, why would he bring pain? Why would he allow ignorance to triumph? Well, because he's teaching the human race a lesson, and he's got a certain amount of time set aside for these lessons to be learned. And he knows that the people he's placed in power, through our choices, the majority of the voters, by 1 percentage point, the majority of the voters in the United States voted for Mr. Trump. A majority of the Puerto Ricans voted for Mr. Trump, especially Puerto Rican males. They probably don't realize that means that they're going to be denaturalized. The Filipinos who voted for him are going to be denaturalized, probably. People who have come from Syria and Sudan. And during his last administration, do you remember when President Trump told 5 congresswomen who had been elected to go back where they came from? Every one of them was an American citizen. What does he mean, go back where you came from? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she has Latino blood. Her parents are from Puerto Rico. She's an American citizen. She grew up here. But no question that Stephen Miller wants to send her and all people like her back to, say, Puerto Rico or wherever, or Mexico or Guatemala. So there's a lot of reasons, good reasons, why Christians who liked, or are glad at least, that Mr. Trump won, there's a lot of reasons why they should be able to sit back and be empathetic enough to recognize that a lot of people are in for a world of hurt. And it's going to feel cruel, and it's going to feel unjust to them. And Christians who have advocated or are willing to tolerate policies like that should think very carefully and ask themselves, if Jesus came over for dinner and this happened to be a point of discussion, do you think you could look Jesus in the eye and say, oh yeah, I think that's a good policy? The 5% of the people of the world who have the richest economy of all and the most space should say that they're full and they can't share what they have with the poorest people of the world who simply want a place to come and work. You going to say that to Jesus? I'm not sure that you can. Not if you've caught the spirit of what Jesus said. Not if you've caught the spirit of how Isaiah spoke and Ezekiel. They cared about the poor. Okay. Now I want to talk about something else. I have a book. It's a book called Progress and Poverty. Progress and Poverty by Henry George. It was written in 1879. He wanted to understand, why is it that as we make progress, a few people get richer, but most people, the poverty just gets worse and worse. It's in poverty in a city, especially a prosperous city, is so grinding and so demoralizing and so dehumanizing. What's going on with that? Okay, so he does a great job of explaining how it works, and many economists follow his ideas to this day. Not a majority, but a large number of economists do respect him. And I love this book. I've read it multiple times. It's almost like a sermon about human greed and human selfishness. The next to the last chapter is called How Modern Civilization May Decline. I'm just going to read a couple sentences. When men are habitually seen to raise themselves up by corrupt qualities from the lowest places to wealth and power, tolerance of these qualities finally becomes admiration. In other words, people who are seen to be kind of ruthless in the way they go about getting money, at first it's irritating, and then eventually it becomes admirable. He says, a corrupt democratic government must finally corrupt the people. And when a people becomes corrupt, there is no resurrection. What he's saying is that democracy seems like it ought to be a better form of government. But its weakness is that if it starts having bad fruitage, if it starts being unfair, and it starts allowing some people to succeed so greatly that they have no sympathy, no taxation of them enough to help the others and kind of even the playing field. All the taxes are regressive instead of progressive. When that happens, people start admiring ruthless scoundrels. And that's what happened, I would argue, in the case of Mr. Trump. I mean, think about the people who Mr. Trump affected on his way to becoming the so-called business leader that he convinced people that he was. People who know the facts now recognize that he really never was actually a successful real estate person. He really wasn't. And he wasn't successful at any of his other businesses either. The only business he's been successful at is his branding business, based on his success as being, a celebrity who taught apprentices how to become successful in his business. So they created this false media business situation. They built a set in his building and made it look like he was presiding over these meetings that he never was. So I've never seen the show, but I'm told that he would always say, "You're fired." And so millions of people got the idea that he really knew something about business. So Alexander Pope has a line in his essay on criticism. It says, "Vice is a monster of so frightful mien," M-I-E-N, which means appearance. "Vice is a monster of so frightful mien as to be hated needs but to be seen. But seen too oft, familiar with her face, we first endure, then pity, then embrace." And that's what Henry George is saying here. He's saying that when we see people succeed by cheating, when we see people who go bankrupt 6 times and pass along their business failures to the people they owe money to, who in good faith, built his buildings or built his casinos or took out the trash or swept the floors or put in the bathrooms or put in the marble walls and floors, those people went bankrupt because he went bankrupt and didn't pay them. He just let the banks take over and give him more cash to keep going. That was a pattern of behavior that caused people with less resources to have to fight in court to get anything out of him. He did it as a matter of policy. It was a habit. He's done this for his entire career. He'll tell somebody to do something, and then he refuses to pay the bill, and then he ends up paying half the bill. And if they go to court, they end up spending all of the money that they would have hoped to get. They have to spend that and more trying to defend the honor of the work that they did. It happens again and again and again. And that's on regular business dealings. That's not talking about other things that involved fraud, like the Trump University, where people were told that they were going to be given a coursework that would teach them how to build their own real estate business and become independently wealthy. And they paid $30,000 for a few little courses that didn't do what they claimed they would do. I mean, they just weren't anything. They had no value to them. They were just thrown together. And he ended up having, when he ran the last time, in order to keep it quiet, he had to settle and pay, I forget how many $1 million, $20, $30 million to those people. There were that many people that he had promised an honest educational product to and who had paid honest money to him. And there were that many people that he had to pay cash to try to get them to shut up and to stop complaining so that he could be elected. These are things that have happened. These are facts that have been adjudicated in courts where the only thing that stands is evidence. The plaintiff presents the evidence and the one who is being accused has the opportunity to challenge every bit of that evidence. And when they lose or have to settle, it's because the evidence is on the side of the plaintiff, the people who have been hurt by the activities of, in this case, Mr. Trump. Okay, so I won't give you more of Henry George's work, but this is a great book. I mentioned the pardons for the January 6th. Did I mention that they are saying now that they are in the gulag? They're actually saying that the American court system, which caused them to admit they're wrong, admit that they did awful things, broke laws, injured policemen, killed policemen. They are complaining now and saying that they are, Mr. Trump called them patriots, and they speak of themselves now. They've apparently recanted the humility that they showed in the courtroom, and instead they're now saying that they are unjustly persecuted and are in the gulag, which is a sad commentary because there is a gulag, and it's in Russia, and it's thousands of people who are unjustly put in prison for no reason, for trumped-up charges. They do have an entire system of suppressing dissent against the dictator in a gulag. And that is not what the people who were involved in the January 6th uprising, that's not what happened to them. They are in prison because of their choices and also because they believed a lie, a big lie. And that lie is going to now continue right on. And the one who taught it, who spread it, apparently is going to be able to continue doing so with impunity. That is a source of sadness and anger that no one should be criticized for feeling. But the question is, how do we move forward? I will talk in more detail about what the Bible says about the coming troubles that I warned you about tonight. In summary, there are good reasons to be sad and angry, but it's important, especially for those of you who are Christians, but this is a message that's not just for Christians. This is a message for everyone. The Christian view of how things end is that you've heard before is wrong. Happy days are coming, very happy. But we have to go through the collapse of our civilization to get there. It's not going to be pleasant, but it's going to teach us all things that are useful. Everybody knows, I think, the message of Micah, the 6th chapter, the 8th verse, where it says, God has revealed, O man, that's all humans, God has revealed what he requires. And what does he require? To do justly, to love mercy or kindness, and to walk humbly. Live lives that are humble. Seek justice. That's what Zephaniah tells us in the day of the Lord's anger. And you know, the Bible does talk about God's anger. This is what we're going through right now. God's anger. And God's anger is designed to teach lessons. And the positive thing, the positive perspective that we can get from God allowing a unjust person to become the President of the United States, a person who is mean to people and does not have a broad vision of kindness toward everybody, but has a very harsh way of treating people who disagree with him. God has allowed that because, as one of the commentators that I listened to this in the last couple of days said, Frank Schaeffer, he said, what we have to recognize is that there's hubris and there's humility. Hubris is pride. Humility is the ability to patiently accept narcissistic injury. That's what humility is. Patient acceptance of narcissistic injury. And so he says the beautiful thing about this is that, as Jesus put it, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. The ones who get more and take more are going to have to end up taking a second position, a third position, a fifth position. And the people who have been suppressed, who have been deprived, they will be elevated. The meek will inherit the earth, Jesus said in his great Sermon on the Mount. So, we've reached the moment in history when God has put the proud, the billionaires, in charge. Think of that as an accelerant. Think of that as a fuse that is going to ignite a major response by the poor, those who are hurt by the actions of the proud. That destructive reaction, and I'm not advocating violence. I don't want violence. I want everybody to be as humble as possible. Seek justice, but be humble. Everybody needs to get through this thing alive. We all need to get through this trouble alive. And most of us will. Most of us will. There's not going to be, God is not going to allow nuclear bombs to destroy civilization. It's not going to allow climate change to cause the human species to be destroyed. He's going to intervene in just the next 19 years. And I'll explain why I know that and believe that in the next episode or two. But we're only 19 years away from the end of death. We're only 19 years away from the end of injustice. So we've got to go through what we've got to go through, and it's going to be difficult. So all of the people who say, well, let's just double down on the midterm elections and let's double down on the next election. There's probably going to be a midterm election, and you'll probably get the House back or whatever. But it's still going to be an uphill battle, because what we've seen in this election is that people don't get their information. They aren't even looking for good information. They're not even prepared to believe truth when they find it. They're worried about aliens. They're worried about all kinds of weird, kooky ideas. A friend of mine who I was very close to years ago when we were starting a Christian homeschool debate league in Ohio, we were like best friends, and we helped them their family go through a number of difficulties. They were there to help us get the league started. And it's difficult to even have a civil conversation now because of this difference of opinion about Mr. Trump. And what I consider to be verifiable, clear facts. I mean, that's what debate was supposed to be. You can't even say something if you can't back it up with evidence. Well, here we are. All kinds of things are being said. Lies, 30 lies a day for 4 years, 30,000 lies in the first administration. It's going to be no different now. The news agencies can't keep up with the lies. They just can't. It's impossible. And people have shown that they're prepared to believe the lies. So, we are not going to be able to solve this problem. The American democracy has been nice while it lasted, and it's also been flawed while it lasted. And now we're going to discover a new way of living where it will be democratic in the sense that people's desires will be voiced freely and consensus will be built worldwide. But it won't be democracy in the sense that there's nobody at the top who understands and who brings power when it's needed to solve problems. it'll be a perfect blend of everything that the human race wants and needs. It'll be an opportunity for autonomy as well as an opportunity for competence and help. So, as I say in my podcast byline, positioning statement, even the bad news is good news. It is good news that we are facing a constitutional crisis going forward that we will not be able to extricate ourselves from. That is actually good news, because it's going to reveal the hearts of the Christians who have been claiming to love Jesus. Their hearts are the only hearts on trial right now. Christian hearts are the only hearts on trial. And Christians need to face these issues. And everybody else who is not a Christian, their hearts will be introduced to the principles of righteousness over 1,000 years, starting in 20 years. In 20 years, everybody in the world is going to have an opportunity to learn some new things, and it'll be like going to Disneyland, in the sense that it's going to be a pleasant experience and an adventure, and everybody is going to roll their sleeves up and solve the problems on this planet. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be wonderful. But to get to that, we're going to have to watch our civilization decline. And we're going to have to learn to accept the people that we can't stand and refuse to be violent toward them. And if they are violent toward us, the worst that could happen is that when we speak the truth, that they don't want to hear, they'll kill us. That's the worst that could happen. Guess what? If we're the part of the small percentage who dies in this trouble, we will be coming back. That's what the Bible says. It says it unequivocally. It says it absolutely. It says, don't even be surprised at this. It's going to happen. So, I am sad, angry, and happy. I'm blessed. I have no ill will towards Mr. Trump. He is a product of his own experience. He's been unlucky he's unlucky in that he was never corrected in a loving way as a child. He's unlucky in that he never had a father who loved him the way a healthy father would, or a mother who loved him the way a healthy mother would. My heart aches for what he has gone through as a human being. But he was shaped by those experiences as a child, and that is why psychologists today see him as a petulant child who has never really matured, why he's a narcissist, a malignant narcissist. I mean, psychologists have gone on record saying that, and there's plenty of videos and books about this if you're interested in reading about it. But like all of us, he's a product of nature and nurture. And his idea that some people are good and have good genes and other people are bad and have bad genes, that's a bad idea. That's something that Christians cooked up in the Middle Ages to try to make sense of their view that God only blessed a few people and everybody else he was going to send to eternal hell. And so to explain that, they gave us capitalism and said that the winners in the capitalist world are the ones whom God is blessing. It's hogwash. It's not true. People are lucky or unlucky at this time. And regardless of what they are, they do have opportunities to learn lessons in the process that they're going through. And I am grateful that all of the people who have moral reasons for supporting Mr. Trump, and there are moral reasons for doing so, and they think that it's a better outcome for Israel, better outcome in the sense that it will be negative towards Iran, all of those things, those are valid arguments. But right now, we need to recognize that women are really good at making decisions. And we now have in place a Supreme Court and a whole lot of state legislatures who are determined not to let that happen in the name of fidelity to their religious viewpoint. It's a very messed up Christian moral structure that has come down to us through Rome and the big national religions, the Lutheranism, Methodism, Church of England, Reformed Church in Switzerland and Scotland, etc. Though every one of those Christian traditions is fatally flawed, and they're going to be destroyed as systems as part of this destruction. Not only are we going to lose American democracy, we're going to lose Christian orthodoxy. Christian orthodoxy is going to go down with American democracy and with Russian oligarchies. American democracy, Christian orthodoxy, Russian oligarchy, the rule by the wealthy and the rich. It's really a kleptocracy, which is ruled by the thieves. All of that has to be exposed and brought down by the anger and sadness of the people. And that's what we're headed toward. But I'm not advocating that anybody get violent. And the fact is that it won't take much violence to make it all collapse. It's going to collapse economically. American democracy is going to break under the weight of its own debt and under the weight of its own ineffectiveness. You know, that's what's going to happen. And American orthodoxy, churchianity, it's all going to go down because of the weight of its hypocrisy and the weight of its offensiveness to the young who feel betrayed by the religion. Isn't it a weird idea? Isn't it an amazing idea to think that Jesus is coming forward? He's actually working even now to tear down the church that is claiming to be leading in his name. That's an exciting and adventurous journey that we're going to be on if you listen to any more of my podcasts. I know it sounds too weird, too crazy you've probably already turned me off here, but it's coming. It's going to happen. And I think I can prove it to you. So thanks for listening. And as Jimmy Kimmel said when he held up a sign that he found at a store, a great place to get clothing and kitschy signs. It said, "Live, laugh, and love." Live, laugh, and love. You can get through a lot of this just by focusing on living, laughing, and loving each other. Loving your family, loving your neighbor as yourself. We can get through this. And we don't have to agree on politics. We'll never agree on politics. Never again. The algorithms guarantee that we will never agree. We are stuck in a monster of our own creation. And God knew that was going to happen, and it's part of the human race, smart as we are, being dumb. And we're going to learn from it. And it's a positive end result. It's a positive end result. So don't let your sadness and anger make you do bad things to each other or to yourself. We're fine. We're good. We're going to survive this. And by golly, just speak up. Without violence and threats, just speak up and let your opinion be heard, whatever it is. And we'll all get better, and we'll learn to live together as a result of it. Okay, I got to stop. Thanks for listening. This again was episode 8 of It Is Near. What is near? Good things. Good things are near. Actually, this has been episode 9 of It Is Near. I broke episode 8 into 2 halves, and you've just finished listening to the second half. Thanks for listening. The podcast is called It Is Near, and the content is the product of Owen Kindig and his personal studies. Please like and share and tell your friends about it if you are interested, if you like the material. It's entirely self-funded, and I'm doing this because I really think it's the right message at the right time. And I hope you listen long enough to put my ideas to the test, both through your observations of world history and current events, and also through your verification of what I'm saying from the Bible. Thanks for listening. And remember, even the bad news is good news.